On today's show, a Sens prospect has won the Memorial Cup, and we get back to our 2024 NHL Draft Rankings. Today's profiles include a prospect many Sens fans have been asking about. All that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. I'm Ross Levitan in the heart of enemy territory while Brandon Pillar is on vacation, but Pilsy will be by shortly to cover three serious draft targets for the Sens with their early second-round pick in the NHL Draft. We're also going to touch on the rumors surrounding the Sens assistant coaching search and if more changes could come off the ice. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. You can find the show wherever you get podcasts. We appreciate you liking, commenting, subscribing, and being a friend, telling a friend about the latest Locked On Senators. Today is Monday, June 3rd, and congratulations are in order, not only for the Edmonton Oilers and Florida Panthers, who found out over the weekend they will be facing each other in the NHL final, but also for our very own Sens prospect, Beaudoin Donovan, and his Saginaw Spirit winning the Memorial Cup in extremely fun fashion with 17 seconds left. After dominating the whole game, the Spirit get the game winner, and Donovan had a huge part of the play. He did his best Ed Reed impression, intercepted the clearing attempt at the blue line, then a little juke, backhand, forehand before getting a shot off, and boom, rebounds in, 17 seconds left, Mem Cup champs. Now, I say one Sens prospect. Could there be another? Zane Parekh did a lot to help his draft status at this event. He was awesome. Sam Dickinson, for the most part, had a good game as well. Great tournament. But let's talk about Beaudoin and Donovan. Donovan finishes the Memorial Cup with 4 points in 5 games and happened to be the subject of our pal Scott Wheeler's latest feature over at The Athletic. Now, Beaudoin Donovan was a later pick, mid-round pick for the Ottawa Senators, gets traded mid-season. And as you can see through this graphic, I've added in playoff stats. I've added in the Memorial Cup. Beaudoin Donovan played 88 games this season. And that's not even counting the World Juniors, where he was a late addition for Team Canada, played there in a depth role. He had 17 goals, 42 assists, good for 59 points, and was a plus 31. Now, to impress that even more, plus 31 is most of it credit since he got to Saginaw. Was a plus 1 player with Brantford, the Bulldogs, where he'd spent all of his junior career to this point, actually losing in a Memorial Cup the team was in Hamilton then. So this is a huge moment for Beaudoin Donovan. Congratulations are in order to him. And if you read Scott Wheeler's piece on him with The Athletic, it really does seem like he's just scratching the surface. The Saginaw Spirit GM saying he's one of the best two-way defensemen in junior hockey. So we're looking for a lot more big things to come for Beaudoin Donovan. He and Tomas Hamara will both be turning pro and expected to start next season with Belleville. So plenty more to get to off the ice this summer with the Ottawa Senators, but the rumors are already turning. Since I'm on the topic of Scott Wheeler, though, should mention his final draft rankings are out at The Athletic. And I tweeted at Sens Central that 3, 4, 5, 6 range on his list. It's all defensemen, and I've made a decision. We know I'm Tige again. I'm Team Tige right now because the Senators, as much as they could use defensemen, I almost think they're better off getting that in free agency if possible, that already pro NHL experience. They need help now on their blue line, but that skilled forward prospect, they just need a top prospect. Whoever best player is available, I'll get on that, but Tige Ginla, I'd be super happy to see him wearing a Sens jersey after draft night. That being said, Artem Levshunov at number 3, Zeev Buium at number 4, Zane Parekh at number 5, and Sam Dickinson at number 6. If the Sens can get their hands on any of those 4 defensemen, that would be awesome. And it seems like there's going to be at least one of those players available. And you throw in the 2 curveballs, one of them, the Russian factor for forward Ivan Demidov. Could he fall like Michkov did to 7th last year? Maybe. But the other X factor is that Montreal picked their defenseman last year with David Reinbacher. And I did note in Scott Wheeler's article that he would take any of that upper echelon of defensemen in this year's class over where he had Reinbacher last season, and Simashev for that matter, who was 6th overall. So always worth the read there. Scott Wheeler will be joining us for our full first round mock draft. We'll have multiple special guests. Jerome Berube will be back. Rachel Dory will be back. Brock Otten will be back. We're really going to have, it's our 3rd annual. I mean, this is the masterpiece every year for Locked On Senators. So we're fired up for that. We're going to have plenty more draft notes later in the show. Spoiler alert, it's Adam Kleber. You probably already saw it in the description. This guy, if Ottawa can get him at 39, I would be very fired up. Right shot, 6'5", a little bit of similarities to Tyler Clevin, but would be happy to see him on the Sens draft board. So we'll have that profile a little bit later on. We're also going to profile Cole Beaudoin, Ottawa kid, and also Aron Kiviharju. Why did he fall so much in the draft? Like 2 years ago, people thought this guy was going to challenge 1st overall, kind of reminiscent to Atu Ratti, who was ultimately picked in the 2nd round back in 2021. So lots of this draft discussion. If you're following along on Twitter at Sens Central, we will be at the draft. We're going to be providing some content from there. So make sure to follow along on Twitter at Sens Central. Subscribe to the YouTube page. We're going to try to get more involved with the shorts and get some live streams potentially in there. We're already looking to lock down a few interviews while we're in Vegas as well. So plenty more to touch on when it comes to the draft. Fired up for that. All right. Let's quickly touch on the worst kept secret in Sensland and some other rumors. I'm confident in saying that Mike Yeo will be on the staff as an associate coach, I believe, and I'm not sure why it hasn't been announced. The only thing that maybe makes sense is that they're trying to have the entire staff signed at once and then just make one announcement. I understand that. So maybe it's Daniel Alfredsson still mulling over whether he wants to be back on the bench in the Fire after spending the last 56 games there last season. We've heard rumblings that it could be a group of Travis Green as the head coach, Mike Yeo as an associate coach, Daniel Alfredsson running the offense, and Nolan Baumgartner, a PK specialist, longtime colleague of Travis Green's, going back to their time in Utica in the AHL, maybe even before that as players. But Baumgartner has been with the Manitoba Moose over the last 2 seasons. Of note as well, kind of cool, he was at the Olympics with Team Canada in 2022 as a assistant coach on that. So he's working on his resume, and he would be in charge of the defense in this possible scenario. As you can understand, this means that Jack Capuano's contract will not be renewed. So the Ottawa Senators parting ways again. It feels like it's a new regime finally planting their seeds and their assets in the spots that they want. Rob DeMaio, most recent hiring on the Ottawa Senators off-ice management side. They just did a nice kind of pro scouting feature on what him, the director of player personnel, will bring. Nice little quick feature. You can find that on the Sens social media page. So looking forward to when the news finally begins. The Marty Nakash rumors in Carolina. I saw Frank Saravelli said he wouldn't be surprised if that's a trade that happens before Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Don't get me started on why we have to wait almost a week for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals, but I digress. It's been a great playoffs. Let us know in the comments too. Well, I know we've done this multiple times, but now that it's just down to 2 teams, who are you rooting for when it comes to the hashtag Sens Abroad, or in Florida's case, the Sens potential pick from the Tarasenko trade? It goes from a 4th this year to a 3rd in 2026 if they win the Cup. Is it the end of the world one way or another? Not really. Is it better if they win? You want to keep it out of the division. I've got my future on Edmonton, so I'm going all Oilers, not for Canada's team. I don't have time for that discussion. But because, A, Connor McDavid, that goal he scored last night was ridiculous, but also the best players, you want to see them on the biggest stages, and that is Connor McDavid. That is Zach Hyman, Evan Bouchard, and, oh yeah, Leon Draisaitl. So it's going to be a great Stanley Cup final. Let us know. Are you cheering for Connor Brown and Cody Ceci? Hey, the Cup could come back to Ottawa if Cody Ceci gets to win. He gets his day with the Cup. hopefully bring it back to Ottawa? Or are you going with Vladimir Tarasenko, the Tkachuk family, all of that from the Florida Panthers side? Let us know all that. As I mentioned, Pilsy is on vacation. He's going to jump on, probably be me tomorrow, keeping you track up to date. We have pre-recorded all of our draft rankings up until the end of Wednesday show. So Pilsy and I will appear on all 3 of these episodes. I just am in the middle of a move right now. It's been wild, but we are having a great time diving into this and diving in to the draft the way we do. It really does make the night itself that much more fun when we're kind of doing all these profiles and figuring out what we like, what we dislike, just some fun background for that. Had some people ask whether or not we're going to do a meetup in Vegas. Of course, we want to meet up with other Sens fans there. So let us know in the comments if you're going to be at the draft here. We'll try to figure out something before the big festivities. So let us know as well your thoughts on the Sens coaching staff. Curious to hear the thoughts, because we know it was there's so much vitriol when it was Travis Green announced. Well, now that you know there's a former head coach getting experience in Mike Yeo behind the bench. He was just with Vancouver, successful organization. They offered him to stay on. He wants to be closer to family. Everyone thought, oh, Berube, there's a connection there. Toronto, no. Coming to Ottawa. That's great news. All right, so we'll be back tomorrow. Plenty to get to. For now, we send it over to Draft Rankings. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. It's passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula when you want to get a win. Passion, drive, and patience. So what keeps your ride or die alive? eBay Motors has everything you need to keep your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. I'm talking superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, and more. When you head to our friends at eBay Motors, you know you're getting the best. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Today's episode is also brought to you by GLEBE Central Pub. It's the neighborhood pub in the heart of the Glebe. We love our friends at the GLEBE Central Pub. We love going to the GLEBE Central Pub, and you will too. I'm talking great food, awesome drinks, great atmosphere. They also want to make sure you're entertained while you're at the GLEBE Central Pub. I saw last weekend for the Champions League final, they had a great turnout at the GCP. The vibes are free, and they bring the energy with you. They've also got great food. Try the smash burger, the wings. They've got nights of the week too that are great for features. You want a cheap night out? How about 75 cents per wing on Mondays? They can check out trivia throughout the week. You can go online, GLEBE Central Pub on Instagram and wherever you are on social media, and find out what's going down at the GLEBE Central Pub, like live music every Saturday night. So take your friends, head down to the GLEBE Central Pub at 779 Bank Street, and let them know that your boys from the Locked On Senators podcast sent you to the GCP, where the vibes are free. I'm looking forward to seeing you all soon at the GLEBE Central Pub. All right, a reminder, you can follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter and LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. Back to our NHL Draft Rankings, coming in at number 35. Keep your head up when this guy's on the ice. It's 6'5" defenseman Adam Kleber from the Lincoln Stars of the USHL.
Ross, I'm glad we're finally covering this player. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've noticed a lot of Sens fans, anytime we're talking about right shot defenseman, Adam Kleber. When you guys doing Adam Kleber? You got to look at Adam Kleber. So here we are, and this is a guy that is hard to miss on the ice. He's an absolute monster out there. He's a towering defenseman. He's got a heavy shot. He's a Minnesota kid. So you know he's going to be attending a Minnesota school. He's going to be going to Minnesota Duluth next season. But with the Lincoln Stars in the USHL, in 56 games, he had 5 goals, 21 assists, good for 26 points. That's an 18-point improvement on last season with the same amount of games. He had 2 points in 5 playoff games, and there's a lot to like about this player, Ross.
There's so much to like. It starts with the height, weight, and size, reach, and it continues to the ferocity of which he plays. It makes sense he's going to Minnesota Duluth because this guy's a bulldog. The way that he plays out there, he's not afraid to run people over. I see, and look, different players for sure, but he's got that Tyler Kleven in him where you make one mistake out there. If you're a forward coming down in the neutral ice, he will make you pay for it. But I do think in his draft, you're a little bit better touch than what Kleven had. Kleven's obviously developed really nicely from there. But Kleber, what's really interesting is it's the public sphere that's a little bit higher on him than the NHLers. He did not make Bob McKenzie's list in his most recent ranking. So he was an honorable mention in that list for Bob McKenzie. Honorable mention for Scott Wheeler. Chris Peters is the highest on him at 34. Corey Pronman at 35 and Elite Prospects at 46. So that tells me that there might be a couple warts on his game because 6'5", hits, can do some other things really nicely. You'd think that NHL teams would be all over that.
Ross, am I hearing you're already putting a bottom pair on the Sens of Kleven and Kleber together? Is that what I'm gathering here?
I think that would be pretty sweet. The Twin Towers back there. I would. There's worse options for sure 4 or 5 years from now.
Yeah, it definitely would be a lot of fun. But look, this guy isn't just a big defenseman, but he does things a big defenseman should do very well. He's got that heavy shot. I put in my notes, Ross, he's like Happy Gilmore with his slap shot. I was watching some highlights. Well, it shows you the power. Like he wound up for a slap shot on the power play, missed the net, but the sound of the puck hitting the glass was like a gunshot going off.
Is that goal regulation size or what?
Yeah, exactly. But Ross, he did score on that play moments later as his teammates were like, okay, he's hot right now, feed him the puck, and he snapped it home with a snapshot. So he's got different shot opportunities. He defends with that physical edge. Guys simply cannot push him off the puck in the USHL. Like it's almost like little brother, big brother, when the big brother just puts his hand on the little brother's head and he's just trying to like get at him. That's what it's like. Kleber's just like, you're not going to knock me off this puck here. He skates well for his size, which is an interesting comment from scouts because his size is 6'5", so skates well for his size. Maybe isn't necessarily skates well in all grading categories overall, but skates well for his size. We'll take it. Dauber Prospects mentions that he can break the puck out and defend against the rush. So that's nice to know you've got a bigger physical defenseman that isn't just a klutz when he's handling the puck, right? You can still count on him. If it gets dumped in his corner, he can competently break the puck out and not have teams just keep doing that to try to find a weak spot in the Stars game.
I think that his next season is going to be, well, his next few seasons at Minnesota Duluth are going to be really telling into what his offensive upside is. I think this guy's a high floor player, though, because he's got that almost, I don't want to say guaranteed, but the skating, the size, and the snarl. That to me is you're already a third pair defenseman in the National Hockey League. And it's just about how much offense he can provide. And if it's 20, 30 points at the NHL level, now you're talking about a really important, valuable piece as a top four, maybe a fifth defenseman who can move up when injuries happen. But I like this player. I think that he fits the prototype. He's obviously a right shot defenseman, which helps what the Senators are interested in. But he's a player where if they took him at 39, that could be a smirk over at each other. Like, oh, so we're going to be a mean team. Hey, okay. I like that. And I'm curious what your thoughts are for the Senators with Adam Kleber.
Ross, I like Adam Kleber as well. I don't do this very often, but there was a player comparable that jumped at me right away, and hopefully this doesn't go as bad as some of my player comparables have gone on prospect profiles in the past. This guy reminds me a lot of Jamie Oleksiak.
Oh,
right? The big defenseman, but not just clunky, can be effective with the puck, can put up some points, skates well, and ironically, the Dallas Stars, Kleber plays for the Lincoln Stars, but the Dallas Stars drafted Oleksiak, traded him, and then immediately, I think he was only in Pittsburgh for one full season, and they're like, no, can we get him back? So, like, These are the types of players that teams covet. And I think Kleber is going to be well sought after in the second round. I put in my notes, if the Sens don't take a right-hand shot defenseman in the first round, he would be a great pick at number 39. So I've got Kleber at 4 out of 5 stars, Ross. Sign me up for a 6'5" right-hand shot defenseman.
I think with Kleber, when day 2 starts, that's when he should really, be ready to go. I don't think he's going to be a first rounder, but he could surprise, maybe going higher than some people would think in the second round, despite being an honorable mention on Bob McKenzie's list, which usually signifies that you're probably in the third round or later. But he's the type of player I bet you a scout or two from certain teams are just going to fall in love with, pound the table, and make it known that they want this guy in their organization. If your team just drafted Adam Kleber, you're in for a fun ride. Great player, fun prospect. Adam Kleber coming in at number 35 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings, which will continue right up until the draft. And if you've missed any of our rankings, they are all free and available to you on YouTube. All right, on the other side, we continue with a pair of prospects. One was seemingly going to be a top 5 pick for this draft just a couple of years ago, and Cole Boedw, an Ottawa lad. Let's discuss next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Looking at it right now, the Stanley Cup final odds are out, and Florida is minus 130. They are the favorites to win the Stanley Cup. Edmonton is down at plus 108. If you're interested in the NBA finals that get underway on Thursday, game 1, huge favorites for the home Boston Celtics, minus 245 at home. For the series, it is Boston. If you're going single, they're given a game. You need to mix in a minus 1.5 spread. You're betting on the Boston Celtics. If you're a Jays guy, minus 106 tonight. It's Kevin Gausman on the mound against the Baltimore Orioles. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Adds bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com to go check out FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, welcome back, Locked On Senators. We are inching closer to the NHL draft. We've already covered about 50 prospects, and we look forward to getting into the first round so soon. We're not there yet, though, because coming in at number 34 on our 2024 NHL Draft Rankings from the Barrie Colts, it's Cole Beaudoin.
And Ross, Cole Beaudoin is an Ottawa kid, like you teased before the break. Even better, Ross, he's from Canada. So,
Is that better?
Well, if you're looking as an Ottawa Senators fan, you're like, hey, he's from the Ottawa area. Hey, he grew up around the corner from the CTC. You got to love that. And then he honed his craft in my neck of the woods in the OHL with the Barrie Colts. And he had a lot of success here, Ross, last season as an assistant captain. So little leadership qualities there as well. In 67 games, he had 28 goals, 34 assists, good for 62 points. In 6 playoff games, he had 5 points. And he also spent time with Team Canada at the U18s, where in 7 games, he had 4 points. So, Ross, wherever this guy plays, he's pretty close to a point per game clip. So he's got some nice offensive capabilities.
Cole Beaudoin is 6'2", 209 pounds, an April birthday, and he is as high as 20th, where you can find him on Corey Pronman's rankings out of our 7 scouting entities. Everyone else, late first, mid-second, 30 on Bob's list, 31 on Elite Prospects, 39 for Scott Wheeler, 44 for Chris Peters, 45 for Craig Button, and 56 for McKeen's. 62 points in 67 games will jump off. 28 goals will jump off the page. But you can't talk about Cole Beaudoin without talking about his ferocious motor. This guy is always at a full pace, tempo, emphasis. This guy is a worker bee, and that's why he's such a projectable player. And I think he will be a first-round pick, a team that wants certainty, that doesn't want to take a risk, that wants a safe pick. This is the definition of a safe pick. Now, there might be more upside beyond that for sure, but you are guaranteeing an NHLer out of this draft if you take Cole Beaudoin.
Yeah, I would say that's probably right, Ross. I'm not going to go as far as saying guaranteeing because I've been burned by prospect predictions in the past. So I'll leave that one to you. But there's certainly a lot to like about Cole Beaudoin. He's a dual threat, good shot, nice passer. He's got a quick release in the slot. He plays both sides of special teams, so you'll love to see that. Scott Wheeler mentions he does need to work on his skating speed a little bit, but he's a strong kid physically. And once he's in stride, he can really pick up some speed. Mitch Brown from EP loves his work ethic. You talked about how he has that high motor. So you start looking at this is a guy that can pass, shoot, kill penalties, play on the power play, has a high motor, can skate with speed once he gets going. Like, there's just so many attributes you like about this guy. And then Ross, another little thing to look at for the Sens, at least for how they used to draft. His dad was a longtime pro that played in the NHL, Sweden, Switzerland, and Germany. So he comes from pro hockey family lines.
That's not even close to it. He also played 3 games for the Newcastle Vipers in the English League. Played in Switzerland. He played in Switzerland. He played in Croatia for 3 games as well.
Okay, so I missed England and Croatia. So yeah, this guy's his dad did the world tour of hockey.
He's got the hockey passport stamped everywhere, and he was, all over the place. This guy played hockey in Utah before it was cool to do so. Utah Grizzlies back in 01-02 in the AHL there. Good Ottawa lad, Eric Beaudoin as well. But I think what you're going to find with Cole is not only work ethic, but the guy's an animal. Everything I'm reading, Scott Wheeler's article, everything points to the fact he's a very strong athlete in the gym. And again, that's what you want to have out of these guys you're picking in the draft. You want them to fit into the culture of what you're trying to build. And I think that Cole Beaudoin is a culture builder when you have him in the room. I think that everything that I'm reading, amazing teammate, all these great things, and he's going to impress. I have a very strong feel. I'm a very high on Cole Beaudoin. He's the highest I have on our rankings so far. Obviously, we've got him at 34 with that average of 37.9 being dragged down a little bit by McKeen's, who has the oldest rankings. And I think that does have some say here because Cole finished the year pretty strong with 5 points in 6 games in the playoffs and then had 4 points in 7 games and was +6 at the U18. So I would be happy if the Sens took him at 25, Pilsy. Like, that's how high I am on this kid.
I think, Ross, he's going to be this year's version of like the Shane Pinto, Bobby Brink area where they're the first picks made out of the second round. In my opinion, I think that's a more appropriate spot for him. I like Beaudoin a lot. Obviously, you just heard all the things we talked about him. I got him at 3.5 stars, though, Ross.
What?
I think the Sens can take a bigger swing here. And also, it's so tough to project how picks 25 and 39 are going to go because it's a domino effect from what happens at 7, right? Like if the Sens take a right-hand shot defenseman at 7, most likely Zane Parekh, then I don't want them drafting another right-hand shot at 25 or 39. Probably not. And then if they go a left-hand shot defenseman, it just trickles on. So again, this is not a knock against Cole Beaudoin. I like the player, but I just think the Sens can take a bigger swing with 25 or 39.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But at the same time, don't you want to have these types of like organizational pieces when you have 3 picks in the top 39? I think you can afford to have one of them be like, hey, we could get some higher upside in like a top 9 forward. But we know we're going to have that wave of a guy who can come in 2-3 years, play 2 or 3 years, fully on his entry-level contract. I think there's huge value in that. And a team like,
Yeah.
you know who's going to take him?
Who?
Dallas Stars. Their
Yeah.
scouting is so
He's
good,
going to
man.
turn into an instant impactful player. But Ross, you do make a good point. The Sens probably would be a team likely to target this guy. You look at Steve Stais' experience in the OHL, and then Don Boyd also came from the London Knights, I believe. So there's a lot of OHL influence in this scouting staff.
Well, and you mentioned he could throw a stone from his house, and he's at the Canadian Tire Center in Canada. But also, the Senators said they're targeting hockey sense and compete. Those are the top two things.
And Don Boyd recently told Bruce Garriock what they're looking for is character, speed, and size.
Well, Cole Beaudoin is your guy.
Could be.
I like that. Cole Beaudoin, 3.5 stars though, Pilsy. Come on, man.
Man, you know my 3.5 star rating. It means I like the player, but maybe not in the range or a fit for the Sens. That's all I'm saying. Okay. If the Sens drafted him, I wouldn't be disappointed. Put it that way, though. It's not. Don't get it twisted.
Okay, well, he is a very fun player, and he's a centerman as well. I think maybe a winger at the next level, but I could be completely wrong on that. He could be a great centerman, snapping back faceoffs, penalty killer, definitely. And in perfect world, maybe a PP2 guy as well. But Cole Beaudoin, really fun prospect. He comes in at number 34 on our NHL Draft Rankings. For more of them, you can go check us out on YouTube, Locked On Senators. All right, coming in at number 33. The first pick in the second round area for us on our rankings here. It's Aron Kiviharju, a defenseman out of Finland. And if you were to ask scouts in 2021, maybe even into 2022, hey, let's look down the road. Who's the top pick in the 2024 draft? A lot of people would have said Aron Kiviharju, but it just hasn't developed the way that he would have liked and what would have allowed him to get into that lottery pick status.
Yeah, Ross, unfortunately, a big cause for this was he tore his ACL and had to have ACL surgery. That's why he only played a limited amount of games. He only got 7 games, albeit it was in Liga, 7 Liga games with HIFK. He had 1 goal, 1 assist for 2 points. He did come back in time to play in the U18s, which is great. And Team Finland showed how much they respect him by making him the captain of that team. In 5 games, he had 3 assists, and he had 21 Liga games the year before, Ross, after he lit up U20 with 20 points in 22 games. So clearly this guy can put up points, and he's a confident kid. His draft projection reminds me a lot of fellow Finn Atu Räty. Remember, a year before Räty's draft class, everyone's like, this guy's going number 1. He's going to be the top prospect. Then that season started and people said, maybe he's a top 3 guy. Still really, really good, but maybe not the consensus number 1. Then halfway through the season, I think he's probably going to be top 10. Then near the end of the season, maybe he cracks the first round. And then he ended up getting drafted 52nd overall to the New York Islanders. So I think Kiviharju is going to be one of those guys where you can't let the drama of the draft and the typical little nuances of looking at draft year prospects get in the way of noticing what a good player he actually is.
Yeah, he is. He stands 5'9", which is going to be a bit of a challenge at the NHL level, no doubt, but he's played that undersized his whole career, 170 pounds, January birthday, and much like Atu Räty, who I just looked up, Räty finished 28th on Bob's list. Well, Kiviharju is 23rd on Bob's list here. He's 23rd on Scott Wheeler's list, 24th for Chris Peters, 36 for Craig Button, 45 for McKean's, 49 for EP, and then Corey Pronman has him at 61. Obviously, less film to watch on Kiviharju this season with the unfortunate injury, but to me, it's all about your due diligence that you've done in the years before of what type of player Kiviharju is going to be. But what made him successful was kind of the razzle and dazzle of being an offensive defenseman and being a guy who was able to jump in to the top junior league pills. This guy was playing U20 hockey at 15.
Yeah,
he was
wow.
so ahead of it that it's almost like, I wonder if him coming to North America would be the best thing for him, like ASAP.
Yeah, especially Ross, because he has that Liga experience already. I mentioned, sure, he only got 7 games this year, but the year before he was in 21 Liga games. So it's not like he didn't get a chance to get that pro experience. He's a confident kid too, Ross. I saw an interview of him, and he said he models his game after Adam Fox. Smart move. He said his ultimate goal is to win the Stanley Cup. So, some of those Europeans, the
World
allure.
Championships.
What's that?
They want the World Championships over there.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the Europeans, the allure of the Stanley Cup doesn't ring true like it does for Canadians and Americans that have grown up with teams playing in the area. So clearly he's got his sights set high. Wheeler is very high on him, calling him one of the smartest players in the draft. Wheeler loves his ability to break the puck up ice. That's huge. And he can play both sides. He can play the left and the right side. Sens fans, we get a little PTSD when we hear defensemen that are supposed to be able to do that. But it's a nice little tool to have in your back pocket if you're a defenseman. And I just think that a lot of scouts are mentioning Ross. You talked about how he's only 5'9", but the hockey writers, one of their profiles on him mentioned that his skating and his smarts are going to overcome his small size. So I think this is a confident kid that knows he's going to have to work that much harder than every other player just because he's put at a disadvantage with his size. And he sees that as a welcome challenge. I think this is a guy that's going to go far in his hockey career.
Well, it's going to take him a while to get there, though, because like you mentioned, he's going to be top 5, top 10, top 15. I mean, even Scott Wheeler, who was the highest on him, was originally like 18 in his midseason rankings. Then after the World U18s, he put him down an extra handful of spots. He says, I still like him, but there's a chance he slides. Again, it's like, man, that's tough when you're expecting to be a higher pick, and then you just keep tumbling down rankings year after year, month after month.
But Ross, you and I are doing our own ranking list now. So we're getting an idea of how these things go. And being put down on a list isn't necessarily like Wheeler picked his name and is like, no, this guy sucks, let's move him down. It can sometimes just be other players are elevating, and that then slots you and slowly shifts you down. So it's not always a detriment to the player. It can be that other players have elevated their game, and that's slotted you down a bit.
I put him one spot ahead of Jesse Pulkkinen, who we recently covered, but I got him below Will Skahan. Like, I know that might be a bit of a hot take, but it's pick your style of defenseman that you'd like. I like the big, rugged defenseman that can still move the puck a little bit instead of the other way around where it's like a puck mover that is going to be in tough in his own zone. Like, I picture name your power forward in the NHL, Brady Tkachuk, Braden Shen, anyone you want, and maybe St. Louis. After I say Braden Shen's name, just randomly pick that one out of thin air. But I think he's gonna have trouble defending in front of the net in the NHL.
Yeah, that's fair. But that's something you can learn. Like, remember Eric Brandstrom, same thing. Yeah. Struggled with that. Now, I'm not saying Eric Brandstrom is an elite box out defender, but he's certainly improved over time, right? I see this guy, Ross. I think the Carolina Hurricanes would love this guy.
Classic. Yep.
Right?
I can
Don't
see
you
that
think?
too.
Like, this is a guy that they'll have done the research on. They'll know the analytics favor him, and they'll draft him, and they'll develop him, and they'll take the time, and they'll take the swing on him. Ross, I've got him in the same area as Alphonse Frey and Stian Solberg for me. So for me, he's 43rd on my list.
And how about for the Ottawa Senators? He's a left shot defenseman. Does that play into it?
A little bit for sure. I got him at 3.5 stars, Ross, just because I do like this player and I believe in him, but he's not the kind of guy the Sens need to be targeting. If he was a right shot, maybe I would think a little bit more, but it's just he's not the guy for the Sens.
No, not the guy for the Sens, and that's kind of where I'll leave it, because I think I think he's going to be kind of an interesting player to follow, especially like a full season healthy. It's like he missed out on such a critical season of development. So I'm curious to see how he bounces back from that. But I'm excited to watch it from afar because I think there's some boom bust potential there for Kiviharju.
But I do believe in his potential, Ross, and this is the type of player you can. I don't want to, it sounds bad, but it's almost like you can dip into the bargain bin here just because he tore his ACL. You got to remember, you're not drafting players for what they are right now. You're drafting them for what you think they can be in the future. So just because his draft year, he's tore his ACL and didn't get to show off his stuff, I think he's going to go down in the draft and a team's going to pick him and they're going to be like, we got massive value on this guy just because he had a big injury, or people are scared of the smaller stature. So interesting player. I think he goes somewhere in the second round.
For more draft profiles, go check us out on YouTube at Locked On Senators. All right, another great show, Pillsy. We are officially in to the first round of our draft profiles. Number 32 will lead off on tomorrow's show. And our usual shenanigans. Thank you so much for watching, listening, engaging with the show. It goes a long way to helping us. And make sure to support our sponsors as well. GLEBE Central Pub, Farm to Fork. All the links are below in the bio. For Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.